night, everyone, and welcome to our CJC online platform, and welcome to Your Health and You, a production of the Central Jamaica Conference Health Ministries Department, which is designed to present on health-related topics by sharing evidence-based information and naturopathic remedies. Thank you so much for joining with us tonight, and I have a small task that I'm asking all our viewers to do. I'm asking you to like this video, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and to share the link far and wide so that persons can be educated and can live healthier lives. Now, Your Health and You is aired every Thursday at 7:15 p.m. with a focus on general health on first Thursdays, men's health on second Thursdays, women's health on third Thursdays, children's health on fourth Thursdays, and mental health on fifth Thursdays. A small disclaimer: this program is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute providing medical advice or professional services. Before embarking on any health-related information presented in this series, we kindly ask that you seek advice or counsel from a doctor or healthcare professional. I'm so excited for today's program because we will be speaking about the topic fibroids. Before we dive into our topic, let's enjoy a reading from the book Counsels on Health by Ellen G. White.
God's people to stand in purity. We are in a world that is opposed to righteousness or purity of character, and especially to growth in grace. Wherever we look, we see defilement and corruption, deformity and sin. How opposed is all this to the work that must be accomplished in us just previous to receiving the gift of immortality? God's elect must stand untainted amid the corruptions teeming around them in these last days. Their bodies must be made holy, their spirits pure. If this work is to be accomplished, it must be undertaken at once, earnestly and understandingly. The Spirit of God should have perfect control, influencing every action. The health reform is one branch of the great work which is to fit a people for the coming of the Lord. It is as closely connected with the third angel's message as the hand is with the body. The law of 10 commandments has been lightly regarded by man, yet the Lord will not come to punish the transgressors of that law without first sending them a message of warning.
Let us pray. Merciful Father, we thank you, Almighty God, for this opportunity. We thank you for everything you have done for us, how you have brought us thus far. Lord, as we are about to embark on being educated as to how to take care of the physical self, we pray, Almighty God, that not only will we be taught how to take care of our bodies, but also of our mind and our spiritual life. Thank you, Almighty Father, for everything you have done and everything you have provided for us. I pray for a blessing on each and every person on this platform and every person that is listening. Please continue to guide us. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Celebrations, liquids. Next to air, water is the most vital element needed for survival. Every day, intricate processes within your body use water to keep you alive. In fact, humans are about 70% water, which clearly shows that water does much more than just quench thirst. Studies show that water is the transport system within the body, the facilitator of digestion, a temperature regulator, a major constituent of the circulating blood, and a lot more. Clearly, water is the liquid of life. But how much water do we really need to stay hydrated and enjoy its benefits? In a healthy person, the rule of thumb is to consume enough throughout the day to ensure that the urine is clear. Begin your day by drinking water, because your body will be relatively dehydrated after sleeping. Then keep drinking water at regular intervals throughout the day. Staying hydrated is key to good health. Life couldn't exist without water. All your body functions require it. Water cleanses, refreshes, and powerfully aids your body's restoration.
Hello, everybody.
We are Hosanna Praise,
And we are inviting you
to join us at the 5,
4,
3, 2,
1.
Countdown to the End Evangelistic Series.
with who? With Evangelist Dr. Cheyenne O'Connor, beginning March 3, 2024.
And where will this be?
Under the big white tent, Municipal Boulevard, right across from the JUTC depot, Portmore, St. Catherine. See you there!
Oh,
We have come with open hearts. Oh, let the ancient words impart.
Amen. Now, I want you to get active. Let's get our brains working as we go into our Did You Know section. And I want you to type in the chat yes or no after each little tidbit that I share, whether or not you knew this fact or it's the first time you're learning it tonight. So our first fact is, did you know that the National Institutes of Health estimates that 80% of all women will develop uterine fibroids at some point during their lives? Did you know that? Secondly, did you know that there is only one kind of uterine fibroid? You may hear them referred to as leiomyomas, myomas, uterine myomas, and fibromas, but those are all the same. Did you know that? And finally, did you know that Black women have a higher risk of developing fibroids than white or Asian women? Now, did you know any of our 3 questions? Let me check in the chat. Some persons are saying yes, some persons are saying no, but it seems as if we have a very educated audience tonight here on fibroids. And we're going to learn so much more from our special guest, who is none other than Dr. George Grandison. He's a medical doctor by profession, and he acquired his medical degree in 2012 from the Latin American School of Medicine in Santiago, Cuba. He currently works at the University Hospital of the West Indies in the field of obstetrics and gynecology as a senior registrar. He's the first elder, communications, and men's ministries director at the Denby Adventist Church. Now, if you have questions on fibroids for Dr. Grandison, I'm inviting you to start typing them in the chat, and a little later in the program, you might get to hear your questions answered.
The American Heart Association has identified sugar-sweetened beverages, or SSB, as the primary source of added sugars in the American diet, contributing to the pandemic of obesity in our country. SSBs are also linked to insulin resistance, impaired B-cell function, and belly fat, precursors to metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes. In addition, recent studies have found that these beverages increase inflammation, which contributes to arteriosclerosis, plaque stability, thrombosis, and risk for heart attack and stroke. That's a fact. But there's hope. God gave us a perfect beverage that does not promote weight gain or chronic disease: water. It has no calories or additives and is widely available, inexpensive, and generally safe. So, do your health a favor. Go pour yourself a tall glass of God's perfect beverage.
Good night, Dr. Grandison. It's so great to have you here on Your Health and You. How are you doing tonight?
Hi, Sister Francis. Good night. I'm fine. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And tonight we're going to dig a little deeper into the world of fibroids. And I know many of our women out there, Seventh-day Adventist women in general, are interested to know what exactly are fibroids.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that question. So, a fibroid basically is a tumor. You could basically say it's a benign or it's a non-cancerous tumor that grows, and in a female, particularly from the uterus, because we're talking about uterine fibroids. Another name, as you mentioned a couple of their names, more commonly known as fibroids, but you can call them leiomyomas as well, as fibromas. All of them basically say the same thing. It's just an overgrowth of a particular cell line of a woman's womb, a part of the muscular layer of the womb. And it has multiple different reasons why it can come into being.
Right. You just mentioned my next question. What are the reasons that this overgrowth might happen?
Okay, so there are multiple different factors that cause it to grow. Suffice to say that it is very common in Black women. So from there, you can actually deduce that there's a genetic component, right? So Black women seem to have that gene that causes them to be more at risk of developing uterine fibroids. Also, there are factors that are linked to diet and nutrition. It has been found that an increase in caffeinated foods, as well as processed foods, increase the risk of uterine fibroids. Also, there are certain components that are very prevalent now in many things that we use. They're called phthalates. Some of them are endocrine disruptors. They're used in certain pesticides that are used to kill insects, right? These are called known to be endocrine disruptors. They actually disturb, as it says, it messes with the hormonal balance in a woman, and as a result of that, increases her risk of fibroids. Also, there are other things such as an increase in weight. These things, they actually cause an increase in the risk. So you could basically say these are causative agents, but the number one cause is really a genetic mutation, a change in the gene, which happens spontaneously. And then from there, coupled with the other environmental factors, causes the fibroid.
And now that you mentioned it, I just want to ask a follow-up question. Why is it that it affects Black women more than other women of different races?
Right. So as I had mentioned before, the genetic component is significant in Black women, because anywhere you find Black women, it's more than likely they will be at increased risk compared to other women of the same age and same body build and everything. A Black woman more than likely will have it. Also, there are other factors. It seems as if in different places, Black people tend to be more marginalized, more stressed, and due to the increased level, because they're discriminated against basically in almost every continent that we may find ourselves, or we're stressed by poverty or whatever it is. All of these cause an increase in cortisol, and it seems as if cortisol may have our high levels of stress, which are associated with cortisol increases what we call the inflammation overall in the body, which increases the risk in Black women above other women.
Well, so that's a PSA to all our Black women listening. We need to get the stress levels down. And now I want to ask, many persons might be concerned, can fibroids develop into cancer?
Okay, so that's so the straightforward answer to that question is no. Fibroids don't develop into cancer. However, there are certain types. There are certain types of genetic mutation that leads to what we call leiomyosarcoma, right? Which is basically totally different from a leiomyoma, right? So the leiomyosarcoma, that basically is the cancerous type. It is not a fibroid, and it is not related to a fibroid, so to speak. It may look like a fibroid on imaging. For example, when an ultrasound is done, when a CT or MRI is done, and it's not until a histopathological report is given that one may discover that this is cancer. But for the most part, most reports, most scholars agree that fibroids do not transform into cancer, that the cancerous part of it has a totally different mechanism from the fibroid itself.
And that is a relief to hear indeed. Now, what are some of the symptoms of fibroids? Are there symptoms that are pronounced that can be seen by the person themselves, or do they have to go to a general practitioner to then find these symptoms?
Okay, thanks for that question. All right, so most women who have fibroids do not know that they have fibroids. The majority of women who have it, they are asymptomatic, means that they don't have any symptoms. Now, if they start to have symptoms, they generally fall into approximately three different categories. One of the first categories that it may cause infertility. So the female may be trying to get pregnant and can't get pregnant, and we initiate some investigation, and then we find out now that she has uterine fibroid. Two, it may cause abnormal bleeding and heavy pain during the periods, right? And we may do an investigation, and as a result of that, we find that she has fibroid. And thirdly, it may cause compressive symptoms. So it may press against the bladder and cause bladder pain, or the female may not be able to keep her urine, or it may press against the rectum posteriorly and cause her to have constipation. And it's during investigations that we'll figure this out. So those are the three main categories of symptoms. So it may be compressive, it may cause pain and or bleeding during periods, or infertility. And we discover this many times just by asking the patient some questions. We can have an idea what is happening. But when we physically examine the patient, for the most part, because it grows and increases in size, we may be able to palpate or feel the abdomen, the tummy, and we feel this tumor or this mass that is growing from out of the pelvis, right? Or it's at the belly bottom, really. So it's growing from the bottom of the belly, so we actually feel it. So we would have a high degree of suspicion in that regards. And then now we would send to do further investigation, i.e. an ultrasound, which is basically the gold standard because it is cheap, it is readily available, and it is easily accessible to basically most women. And it's cheap compared to a CT or MRI. So we would send them to do the investigations, and then it would come back revealing that there are multiple fibroids or probably a single fibroid that is in the uterus.
Okay, so after that general examination by the GP and then the sending for those tests, how is it then treated? What is the treatment plan? Is it different for the size of the fibroids, the number of the fibroids, the location, or is it a one-size-fits-all treatment plan?
Okay, thanks for that question again. All right, so it's the fibroid, it depends. All right, so there are basically different modalities that can be approached, right? So we can basically divide it into three different categories. There is a conservative management, there is the medical management, and there's a surgical management of it. Now, in the conservative management of uterine fibroids, this is for patients who we have discovered has uterine fibroid, but it's not causing them any significant symptoms. So in other words, it may have been an incidental finding. We send the patient to do an ultrasound for something else, and we now see that there's a fibroid there. And because it wasn't causing any problem at all, then we just leave it alone. We just continue to monitor just to ensure that it is actually a fibroid and not the a leiomyosarcoma, right? So we continue to do our management. So in this case, we basically that's conservative management. So we're not really doing anything for it, right? Because it's not really causing a significant problem. And this also is available to some women who may have the fibroid, but they don't want any medical intervention or surgical intervention. So the option would be a conservative management. For example, for a female who is, menopausal, she's stopped seeing her menses, and she doesn't have any fertility desires, doesn't have any plan to get pregnant. I mean, she's in menopause. So therefore, to offer her medical management and surgical management might not be best for her, especially if she's not significantly symptomatic. So that's conservative management. Medical management now means that we can give certain medications for the particular symptoms that the female is having. So for example, if she is having heavy bleeding, we can give some hormonal injections to control the bleeding. This also can help to decrease the size of the fibroids in preparation for surgery, right? So that's the medical management really. It's really managing the symptoms that the patient is having with hormonal medications. Also, we can give them pain medications for pain that they're having, right? So basically you're trying to intervene, but from a medical perspective. And then last but not least, there is a surgical management, which there are different surgical approaches. There is a surgical approach that is called uterine artery embolization. There is also myomectomy, and there are different ways of doing the myomectomy or fibroid surgery. It can be an open myomectomy where a cut is made along the bikini line, and we go and we remove the fibroids. For example, we do this a lot for patients who have either compressive symptoms, so it's pressing against somewhere, like the ureters, which may damage the kidney eventually, so we intervene. In a woman, for example, who has fertility desires, we intervene as well, and we do a myomectomy, right? And if it is now that, and myomectomy, as I mentioned, it can be open surgery or it can be laparoscopy. Now, for the woman who wants a definitive management, we can do what we call a hysterectomy. And the hysterectomy now is going to remove the womb and the fibroids. So basically, she doesn't have any issue or won't have any more issue with any fibroids in the future, because the causative agent or the area in the body where that fibroid would have developed would have been removed, i.e. the womb, and therefore there's no future possibility of fibroid developing.
I feel like you'd have answered my next question, and I can guess what the answer can be based upon what you just said. And right. The question is, can the condition be cured? And I'm assuming that the last thing you spoke about, the hysterectomy, that would be the
right. Right. So that would be the definitive treatment of it. But for example, there are patients who do surgeries of fibroids. We do the myomectomy, and the surgery, the myomectomy is not the cure, because more than likely they are going to come back in the near future with more fibroids, and they'll more than likely have to do surgery again. So the myomectomy is not the cure per se, but the definitive treatment definitely would be a hysterectomy, because once you remove the womb, then there's no way that it will grow back.
Right, and that wouldn't be the first recommendation.
Right, so that wouldn't be the first recommendation, because for the most part, fibroids tend to appear during the reproductive life of a woman, and because it appears in her reproductive age, she has fertility desires. She wants to get pregnant. So you would want to remove the womb at that time. So therefore, we generally offer a myomectomy, which is a removal of the fibroids at that time and sparing the uterus. Now, if later comes after she has satisfied her fertility desire, she has had her lot of children, she may now desire that I want this hysterectomy because I'm not going to do another surgery. So just get rid of my uterus, and then we will gladly go ahead and sort her uterus out for her.
Okay. And winding down, I think this is my final question. Can this condition be prevented?
All right. So technically speaking, it cannot be prevented because the genetic factors are there. All, majority of Black women, they have the gene for uterine fibroid or have inherited it. There is a thing that is known as epigenetics. So due to epigenetic changes, which would have happened during slavery and the conditions that our forefathers would have been exposed to, the diet that we're now exposed to in this part of the world have changed our genes, so to speak. And so this is passed down. It is a genetic thing. So if you think about it, I think I had mentioned it, but it's more than likely if you check a family, you'd find that great grandmother had fibroid, grandmother had fibroid, mother had fibroid, aunties have fibroid, cousins have fibroid. So in other words, it's a genetic thing. So it cannot be prevented per se, but actions can be taken to decrease the development of uterine fibroids. Now, pregnancy has been shown to be protective, so to speak. It decreases the risk of uterine fibroids. Obesity increases the risk of uterine fibroids. So by losing some weight, it can cut down the risk of fibroids because when a woman is overweight, she produces more estrogen, and fibroid, they basically feed off, or that is the food that is nourishment for them. So a woman who is obese has much more estrogen than a woman who is not. And therefore, if she has a genetic makeup or component or predisposition to get fibroids, then what will happen once all the planets are aligned, so to speak, then she will develop the uterine fibroid. And because she already has the makeup, the hormonal imbalance, so to speak, she's obese, so she has more estrogen, then that will feed into the fibroid and it will grow even more. Alcohol consumption has been shown to increase the risk of uterine fibroids. So by decreasing alcohol consumption, one's risk of fibroids can be decreased. Also, there are women, for example, who use, they are accustomed to having highly processed foods, and as I mentioned initially, that is one of the risk factors for developing uterine fibroids. They mention in some studies that soy milk and products at times, because of the phytoestrogen that are in them, have been shown to be associated with uterine fibroids. Now, the studies out there, they are sort of conflicting, and so there are further investigations actually needed to show whether or not this is the case.
That's a very interesting fact about soy milk, but as you said, further investigation needs to be had. And thank you so much, Dr. Grandison, for the information you have shared a while ago. I now have a long vocabulary list of terms that you mentioned, and I learned so much about fibroids, and I know our viewers did too. Now, Sister Rosemary Taylor is saying very informative, and she's also asking about naturopathic / natural remedies. Sister Taylor, you are in luck Right after our break, we're going to hear some more about that and also possibly about some lifestyle changes that you can make to ensure that you live a healthy and happy life.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church Central Jamaica Conference, in association with Portmore, Tent City, Gregory Park, Hellshire, and Brayton District of Churches, invites you to Countdown to the End evangelistic series with evangelist Dr. Cheyenne O'Connor, March 3 to 30, under the Big White Tent, Municipal Boulevard, Greater Portmore, St. Catherine, across from the JUTC depot. Come hear dynamic preaching from Sundays to Wednesdays and Fridays at 7:15 nightly and 9:15 a.m. on Sabbaths. That's the Countdown to the End evangelistic series from March 3 to March 30. Come and be blessed. For more information, visit www.centralja.org.
All right, I was just scrolling through our chat and I was seeing some of our questions being answered. But before we go to that, we have a very special guest with us. Welcome, Dr. Langley. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, thank you very much. I'm doing very well.
Awesome to have you here. And she will be our naturopathic specialist, Dr. Joan Langley. So let me start with you, Dr. Langley. What are some of the natural remedies, or how can natural remedies help with treating fibroids?
Well, they do help because we have had clients who come with this condition, and sometimes persons are terrified of surgery. And in looking at this condition, I recognize that your lifestyle, there's a saying that genetics load the gun, but lifestyle pull the trigger. And I think there's some truth to that. So we look at the lifestyle of the person, and then we recognize that there's a trend that follows. Now, there are 5 areas in the diet that we tell persons to be very careful of if they have this condition to deal with. So let me list some of the things that we change with them. All right. So we tell them move away from sugar, sweeteners, and very sweet fruits. That is number 1. Sugar, sweetener, and sweet fruits, because this tend to feed into the fibroids that are there. Then number 2, we tell them move away from dairy foods. All right. Egg, cheese, milk, chocolate, ice cream, all of these things. And sometimes the eyes will pop out. No more ice cream. All right, but these are estrogen disruptors, so we remove that from the diet. Then we go to the tins. Many of us, the processed food has been wreaking havoc on the ladies, so we move away from the tin foods, right, or canned food, some persons will call them. So we're talking about your tunas and your sausages and your beans, whatever is in the cans. And we teach persons to use the natural things instead. All right. And then the next one we look at is wheat products. Now, wheat is leading to a lot of inflammation in our females, a lot of inflammation, a lot of disruption going in the body. By the way, I need to mention, and my goodly doctor had mentioned it before, hormones, fibroids come because of hormone imbalance. So we spend a lot of time concentrating on balancing the hormones. All right, we look into that. The hormone has been disrupted. So I mentioned 4. I think it's 5 areas. I mentioned 4 already. You remember them?
Yes,
sugar, their sweetness, dairy, tin food, wheat, and last but not least is our flesh food. So we put them on a kind of strict diet where those are concerned. Another thing that persons have been moving away from is sleep. You don't go to bed on time, so the body doesn't have time to fight against any kind of disruption that is taking place in the body. And it is during your sleep that the body can kind of quote unquote make wrongs right. So the body needs to sleep. 10 to 2 o'clock is when the body go about helping itself to take care of some of these conditions. All right. So you're predisposed because of who we are as a people, Black people. But you don't have to fall into the category of it happening to you. So what are some of the other things? We tell exercise. Exercise will help to control your weight. And my doctor mentioned your weight is very important, very crucial, because toxins like to hide in fat. The bigger we are, the more toxins are hidden in our bodies, and all kind of sickness can come upon us. So ladies, don't be glad to hear that you're fat and look good. The fatter we are, the more likely it is that we are predisposed to many kind of diseases. Now, your vegetables. I can't overemphasize the importance of putting vegetables in your diet. We don't like it. It came after sin. It don't taste as nice as fruits. But God had to give them to us so that we can be kept healthy. All right. And during this time, we concentrate a lot on the green leafy vegetables. We have to get those in. Very crucial. And foods that are high in vitamin C. All right. So those are some of them. And I find out, doctor, and this is something you need to do a little research on with some of your clients that come. The vitamin D content tend to be low.
Yes.
And I recognize with persons with vitamin D that is less than 30 nanogram, it tends to be on the lower side. They are on the lower side, and the fibroids and other conditions tend to spring from this lack. All right, so deficiencies in vitamins, very crucial to let this happen to you, but you can reverse that because it is a hormone imbalance. Balance by the hormone. Another thing that we look at is iodine. Because I'm a naturalist, I like it from natural sources. So I go to the seaweeds, your kelp, bladderwort, Irish moss, all of these kind of things. You will get your iodine, and your iodine is the one that's going to control the hormones. So, ladies, there's hope. You're not, the Lord promised He will not leave us hopeless. There are things we can do. I have seen fibroids leave women so many times. So many times you see them come in a very short time. They are better from this condition. Only that following the regime is kind of strict. So if they are not able to keep with it, then, I said, well, you need to go, go see your doctor and take care of it. And if it poses a danger to the ladies, I said, go take it out. But there are things that you can do, and these are some of the ways that we help the females, those who are really interested in using the natural ways. There are other things, but these are some of the ways that you can start implement now. Move away from the fatty foods. Fatty food, the body does not appreciate it. The body sees it as if they're kind of an enemy to your health, and it's going to wrap it up in those fat cells, and it's going to find an area of weakness to put these fatty things. And the more garbage that is collected inside, then the more these tumors are going to grow in us. All right? So change the diet. Choose a healthier lifestyle. Take care of yourself by sleep and water. The body needs water. It does not need juices. All right. So if we can follow some of these, then we will be okay by the grace of God.
Amen. Thank you so much for those tips, Dr. Langley. I know that persons were taking note of the areas that they're falling short in and the areas that they need to build up. Now, Dr. Grandison, are there any other lifestyle changes that you have to add in addition to what Dr. Langley said?
I'm happy that Dr. Lamley mentioned about the vitamin D. When I was doing a little research or some further reading in uterine fibroid, I actually realized that the vitamin, they did a study recently, and they found in their study, it was done in North America, they found that I think it was between 60 to 75% of the Black women that were a part of that survey, they were actually deficient in vitamin D. And they also found that those Black women in that study had a significant incidence of uterine fibroid. Now, the thing about the Black skin is that we take longer to absorb the amount of UV radiation that the lighter skin people do. So the white folks, they're white people, or people are of lighter skin, they in the sun for probably 15 minutes and they get all that they need, right? Because we have the melanin and it protects us, but it also may take a lot, causes the whole transformation of, conversion of the vitamin D to take a longer time. So therefore, we can't just spend the same 15 minutes that the lighter skinned people spend in the sun. We have to spend probably 3 times the amount so that we can get the same amount that they get. And if you realize our lifestyle now, we are from house to car to work. We're not in the sun. So basically, we're living in a tropical country, but we might be vitamin D deficient because we're not exposed sufficiently to the sun. And as a result of that, now we have less vitamin D, and vitamin D is very, very important in the whole protection of the body, especially as it relates to the development of uterine fibroids. That's one of the mechanisms that's involved in it, lack of vitamin D.
Wow, I'm seeing the irony in that. As you said, we're from a tropical climate and we might be vitamin D deficient. So that's something we can do for free. Go out in the sun and soak up some of that natural vitamin D essence. So I have a question for you, Dr. Grandison. It says, if there are no obvious symptoms, how does one know that they have fibroids?
Okay, all right. Thanks for that question. Right. So if there are no obvious symptoms, then as I had mentioned, for the most part, the majority of women who have fibroids, they don't know that they have it. It's normally an incidental finding. So they may go to the doctor because they're having some belly pain or something or some other issues going on, and the doctor send them to do an ultrasound. And when they do the ultrasound, lo and behold, there's a fibroid there. But it wasn't causing them any problem. They never had any issue. It's just there. Because as I mentioned, the vast majority of women who have fibroids have absolutely no symptoms at all.
Wow. Another question coming from our chat. With females who are going through menopause, will the fibroids shrink as they age if they refuse surgery?
Yes, and that is why we offer, and thanks for that question, and that is why we offer conservative management, especially for women who are in menopause. Now, there's something that might seem, I don't think it's alarming, but it's interesting. It's an interesting fact to know. If you notice, uterine fibroids are not frequent. It's basically non-existent before puberty, right? And in the teenage years. I've never had a patient in their teenage years who have uterine fibroids. So normally it's by the time they're in their 20s or 30s going into 40s, right? So just saying this to say that before puberty, there wasn't this cyclical release of hormones, right? After puberty, there's a cyclical release of hormones, and this is related to the monthly cycle of a woman, right? So, and therefore, it's during the reproductive ages that we have the increased incidence of fibroids. And so when a woman goes into menopause now, you have a cessation, right, of the cyclical production of hormones. And as a result of that, more than 95% of women will see a decrease in the size and symptoms of their fibroids heading into menopause. It's just a small percentage that may continue to increase in size after menopause. And for the vast majority of these patients, these are the ones who are on, for example, hormone replacement therapy, because they have significant symptoms from their menopause. So they have to be on hormones. And the hormones are still mimicking the cyclical progression of hormone, and as a result of that, the fibroids continue to grow, right? So if that is taken out of the picture and the fibroids continue to increase in size after menopause, then we normally take that as a warning sign and actually go and do a surgery, because it could be that what we thought was a fibroid is actually a leiomyosarcoma. So therefore, if it is actually increasing in size rapidly, and it's basically in the absence of hormones, then that raises our suspicion, and we normally offer surgery for such a patient.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer.
Can I
Another,
have something?
yes, definitely, doctor. Go ahead.
Yeah. One of the things I want our females to know from now, they might not have fibroids yet, or hopefully they won't. But the thing is, think of hormone imbalance. Uh, it is not normal for you to be having these everlasting cramps, these very debilitating cramps every month. It is not natural for us to having these mood swings and all of that. It is because our hormones are imbalanced. They're not working well. And if we accept this as normal, then further down the road, it is going to lead into other manifestations such as fibroids and other things. Right? So the imbalance that is there, we need to do something about it while you're having it. So it might not be the norm, what we are discussing now, but it can lead to it if we don't change some of our lifestyle habits now. I did not mention flaxseed. Flaxseed is excellent for helping in the treatment of fibroids. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Langley. Now, another question that we have coming in is saying that, Doc, you mentioned that it can cause infertility, but what if I get pregnant? Will it affect my pregnancy?
Okay, thanks for that question. Right, so fibroid in and of themselves can cause infertility, right? But regardless of this, a lot of females get pregnant and they actually have uterine fibroid. In fact, these days you hardly see a patient who is pregnant and doesn't have a small fibroid somewhere. As I had mentioned, that most women actually have fibroids and it doesn't cause any problem. Now, the fibroid in and of itself, it can affect the pregnancy, and it's a size of the fibroid that is really the issue, and a lot of time it's location. Now, for a lot of women who they can get pregnant with a fibroid, but based on its location, there's a type of fibroid that is called like a submucosal fibroid, that it actually, in other words, it is more on the inside of the uterus. That one can cause the woman to have infertility, right, or decrease her risk of getting pregnant. Or if she gets pregnant, it increases her risk of losing the pregnancy. So that's one of the things. Fibroids can increase the risk of a miscarriage, right? Not only that, but if the person even passes the time of a miscarriage and say they are now at a age of the pregnancy where you know the fetus is now viable, the fibroid can cause what we call a degeneration. So degeneration means that the fibroid is breaking down, and when it's breaking down now, it can actually cause significant pain in the woman, and it can also cause her to go into preterm labor, so she can deliver the baby long before the baby is due. Right, so fibroids, even though they cause infertility, if a woman gets pregnant with fibroid, we basically keep a close eye on her because it increases her risk of miscarriage, or if the pregnancy is old enough, right, it increases her risk of having what we call a preterm or premature delivery.
Thank you so much. We're winding down, but we still have questions coming in from our chat. They're getting so much information. This question asks, how long after the surgery to remove fibroids do they come back?
All right. Thanks again for that question. It depends, right? There are cases that I've seen that it takes years, right? So there's a patient, I'll just give an example. There's a patient who was operated on in 2006, and she now has the fibroids have come back. So if you realize that's quite a number of years, that's like 18 years, and it's now back. right? And it's as big as it was when she first did her surgery in 2006, right? So basically, you would call that a basically very slow growing fibroid. Now, there are women now who we do this surgery for this year, and within another 5-6 years, it is as big as it was before, or it is somewhere where it is causing symptoms. So one of the things that really causes them, all right, so let me just backtrack a little. Fibroids, whenever we do a surgery for fibroids, we try our best to remove all the fibroids, because the problem is this: we won't be able to get every single one, because they are at various stage of development. So some may be as large as a football, right? And the other may be as small as at the tip of a needle. No, we won't be able to find the one that is as small as the tip of a needle in the womb. So we'll take out the biggest one, the one that is more obvious that we can find. So when we do that surgery, that one that is the size of a pin, right? The woman will continue to eat as she was continue eating. She will continue to do everything because the surgery in her mind cured her, right? So she doesn't do any lifestyle changes, doesn't exercise, doesn't lose any weight, eat all sorts of foods, and within 4 or 5 years, this small fibroid grows back to something big, and she has to do another surgery, especially if it's causing her significant symptoms.
Wow, and that shows how important consistent lifestyle changes are. We have to be really dedicated and disciplined, so as not to ensure that you're seeing us time and time again. And our final question is, this is in relation to the vitamin D. Well, 2 questions. One is asking, would you advise darker skinned persons to use sunblock? Because we are asking them to, go outside and get more sunlight. Do darker skinned persons need sunlight? I know this might be a controversial topic, so if you could address that just briefly, and then I'll have one final question.
Okay, so the sunblock, let me hear Dr. Lamley on this, but the sunblock is more often than not whenever we're going to the beach. You're going to be in the sun for an excessive period of time. You definitely would need the sunblock, because the risk of the extended exposure to the UV radiation, the risk far outweigh the benefit, especially when we're at the beach. So we definitely would need sunblock because we'll be in the sun for an extended period of time. However, if it is just for a daily, walk from one building to another, more than likely less than 15 minutes, I wouldn't advise sunblock, right? Because it wouldn't be beneficial to us at that time. We need the UV radiation. Now, I must add that the time that the sun is most dangerous to the skin is after 10 o'clock and before 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when the sun is at its peak, right? At that time, the sun is most dangerous to us. And therefore, during that time, especially if we're going to be in the sun for extended period of time, it's good to have something, an umbrella, a hat, something to protect the skin. If it's before 10 o'clock and if it's after 4 o'clock, then we can just get exposed to the sun, because we won't be getting any significant UV radiation to cause the most feared complication of that, which would be like skin cancer, repeated exposure. So that would be my my advice.
Thank you so much for that. Anything to add, Dr. Langley?
All right. So this part now, Doc, is we encourage persons that if they are going in the sunlight and getting their exposure, the amount of sun that we need, that they should dress for the sun. Now, we believe that because we're going for sunlight, we less is best. Not necessarily true. Now, most person might not be as old as I am on this line, but back in the days when you have the cane cutters out in the sun all day. Do you remember how they were dressed? They have on long sleeve shirt, cotton, and long pants. The same, and they have on a straw hat. The same thing is applicable for us today. If we are going in the sun, dress towards the sun. Wear something, you cannot prevent the sun from penetrating your skin unless you use sunblock, which is not advisable. It's not good for you. It's very destructive. All right. So what you do, well, look at the equatorial countries where it is hotter. The persons tend to dress more. Where are you cooler? Under a shady tree or out in the sun? Surely under a shady tree. So if you dress against the sun wearing cotton and cover the body well, then you will take that sunlight and it will not affect you. The sunblock will block the beautiful rays of the sun. And there was a research doc from Georgetown University, and it came out during the pandemic. And they were amazed to see that, as you had mentioned, at least three times more sunlight is needed for the Black population as against the Caucasian. And that's with good reason, because we are blessed with this wonderful melanin in our skin. And it helps us beautifully. But for the sun to really penetrate you, you have to be well exposed. The early morning sunlight that the Caucasian would enjoy can't really help Black people. So we say, dress nicely, put on your cotton shirt, put something over your head. And we are talking those who are taking therapeutic sunlight. You're using it as a method of healing. Whatever inflammation might be in the body, you can help yourself with this wonderful. I've recommended sunlight for so many conditions, and it's so amazing to see persons get over these, including me, for those who know my story, including me. And also, guess what? When I was pregnant with my daughter, the radiologist who was doing the ultrasound, he said, did you know you had fibroids? I said, no, but I heard you say had. I said, he said, well, they're shrunken. They're dead. And I said, well, praise the Lord. And the next question he asked me, make me know that, I was on the right track. He asked me, what do you eat? And my husband said, well, she eat bird food. And that's what he called my diet. So I was eating fruits and vegetables, nuts and grains. That's the only thing that I was eating. And guess what? They died. Everyone there shrunken. So we have to take the steps. We have to take the measures, and you can be helped. We have seen it many, many times. And if we are willing, and the thing is now, if you even do the surgery and you don't make the lifestyle, and I've come to the conclusion that fibroids are very vengeful. You get them out, and you didn't make the lifestyle change. When they come back, it's like they are more aggressive. Yeah, they just take on as if they said, I will not leave you again. So make your lifestyle changes, even if you have done the surgery to remove them, because they will come back if you don't change your lifestyle.
Thank you so much, Dr. Langley, for sharing. Our final question to Dr. Grandison, and this will just wrap us up nicely. What is the difference between fibroids and ovarian cysts?
Okay, thanks for that question. All right, so the fibroid is a benign tumor which grows from the muscular layer of the womb, right? And an ovarian cyst is basically a fluid-filled cavity which grows from the ovary, right? So the ovary is separate from the womb, even though it's intimately related to it, right? But it's separate from it. So you have an ovarian cyst, which is a fluid-filled sac which grows from the ovary itself, and you have the fibroid which grows from the wall or the muscular layer of the womb. the ovarian cysts. You have various types of cysts. You can have simple cysts and you can have complex cysts. And the complex cysts can either be benign, meaning it's not cancerous, and it can be non-benign, meaning that it is cancerous. And so if a woman has cysts, it's something that we definitely will have to look into. There are women who have cyclical cysts. We call them hemorrhagic cysts, corpus luteal cysts. These are cysts that are associated with the monthly cycle of a female, right? So these are not related to fibroid per se, right? A woman can have cysts without having fibroid. A woman can have fibroid without having cysts. So they're two separate entities. One growing from the wall of the womb, that's a fibroid, and the other grows from the ovary itself, and that is called an ovarian cyst.
Thank you so much, Doctor. We ended up getting a little brat of information tonight. Thank you so much to both Dr. Grandison and Dr. Langley for imparting such potent, powerful information. And I know that all our viewers, and based on the chat, they have been saying they have learned a lot tonight. So thank you so much for coming and sharing this information with us tonight. Now, I have another little task to take us out. I'm asking that we all share this video. This information is too good to keep to ourselves. So share it with someone you might know who might be interested. Share it with your women's ministry group. Share it all around. Make sure this message gets into the hands of the persons who need it. And also, next week, Thursday, you have to be here. And why is that so? Because we will be focusing on immunization, a topic that many of us want to hear so much more about. Thank you so much for staying with us tonight and learning more about your health and you. And I'll leave you with this Bible verse taken from 3 John 2. Which says, Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayst prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. Have a great night.